The Bat-Winged Dogman. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I live in a suburb of Chicago, Illinois, and so for the past 5 years or however long it's been, I've been wanting very badly to see the Chicago Mothman. I've read about it and heard about it on Lon Strickler's blog and podcast, and my hope is to someday get to see it with my own eyes. If you don't know what the Mothman is, it's actually something closer to a giant bat than a giant moth. I guess the name Batman was taken already though, and since this thing had big glowing eyes, they named it after a bug. Or something, I don't know. So there are actually 2 sightings of cryptids in what I'm about to tell you. Each of them are short though, and they aren't as detailed as a lot of the sightings and experiences that you have on your channel. Here's the first one. I needed to bring my cell phone in person to a store run by a friend of the family to get him to fix it at a price I could afford. The fastest way to his shop was for me to take Elk Grove Road down through Buss Woods to East Higgins Road, which is Route 72. Now, Elk Grove Road is just a strip of blacktop inside a dense wood, and that's it. Don't expect streetlights. Don't expect a fancy yellow line in the middle of the road. And don't expect anyone to trim the vegetation back as it tries to swallow the road back up like it never existed. If you want to drive on Elk Grove Road, then you better man up, ladies. So this was the middle of the day, probably late morning, but the clouds had darkened everything until it looked like night. It seemed like it was gonna rain, but then it just kept on seeming like it was gonna rain, without actually raining. Up ahead of me in the darkness, I saw what I first thought was a wolf or a coyote. It was in the middle of the road, facing me, crouched over what appeared to be roadkill of some variety. As my car got closer, I slowed down, and the hairy creature looked up at me. Its eyes lit up brightly, reflecting my headlights, and then it stunned me into a very long gasp as it stood straight up into the air like a human being would. It was bipedal. It was 6 foot tall, man-sized. It was man-shaped, but with a canine head, dark fur, and insane-looking glowing eyes. It was the Midwest Dogman. It was the Wisconsin werewolf, but it was here in Illinois. I reached for my cell phone, but then I remembered that it was broken. The reason I was in the car was to drive to get it fixed. So I returned to staring at this terrifying creature, and he stared at me in return. The woods grew quiet, and all I could hear was my own breathing and my own heart beating. The creature stood before me, perfectly still, and all time held itself in place. Until suddenly, with a sound not unlike sails being unfurled or a flag getting caught up in the breeze, 2 immense bat-like wings snapped outward and upward from behind this dog-like humanoid. When they were fully unfolded, the wings were almost as large as a glider. In fact, I assume that is essentially a biological version of what they were. The wings kind of flapped one time, or else they were resetting themselves or something, because a bunch of dust was kicked up when that happened. This isn't what caused the beast to lift up off the ground, however, and in fact I cannot tell you what did. All I know is that the dogman with the bat wings seemed to float straight up in the air, as if being lifted by a helicopter. I saw it rise above the tree line, its wings still spread wide open, and I floored the gas to get out of there. I don't believe it followed me, or if it did, it was able to hide itself from my view. It wasn't until I was telling the story to my friend Russell that night or the next night when he started saying to me that maybe I saw the Chicago Mothman. I told him that the Mothman is supposed to be something that's more like a bird, and definitely not like a wolf. This was sort of like one of those huge flying foxes, but larger than large. A man-sized version of a flying fox. Sort of. The thing is, the creature I saw had arms, legs, and wings. It's not like its arms were also wings. It had wings on its back and arms coming from its shoulders. I didn't really know that could happen in nature, to be honest. Okay, so the next time I saw this creature, whether it's the Mothman of Chicago or whether it's a Dogman with bat wings, was at Elk Grove Cemetery. This is a really very old little graveyard that can look sort of creepy in still photos sometimes, but not in real life. It's situated these days in between all these highway entrance and exit ramps, surrounded by an ordinary chain link fence. I guess that's sort of spooky, but not in a graveyard way. Even though you're walking through history and people's lives, the sound of traffic whizzing past keeps you very present in the current day. If you aren't careful when you arrive and leave, you might accidentally find yourself driving up to the toll booth and having to pay to continue. The way I ended up in that strange place was that I was dating a girl whose great-great-great-great-grand-something was buried there, and she was desperate to show me his grave. Like she was incredibly proud that she had an ancestor who had fought in the U.S. Revolutionary War. She kept saying I wouldn't believe her till she showed me, but I really didn't actually care. When we finally went there and she showed me the grave, I had no way of knowing if she was related to the guy buried under that stone anyhow. So as we were arguing about all this, at sunset, I felt a cold breeze, and I heard that sound of a sail in the wind again. It sent a chill up and down my spine, and I turned around, looking for that flying Dogman. Then I noticed a flag someone had placed near one of the graves. It was flapping in the wind, and I let out a sigh of relief. And that's why I was so completely unprepared and confused when the dark shadow covered me and my girlfriend. When the light returned, we both saw the big dog bat land on a thick tree branch some 35 feet away from us, and I could see that branch bend under the weight of the crouching creature. It was facing away from us, looking over the chain link fence into the trees and foliage at something that we couldn't see. My girlfriend lost it. She started screaming in fear, complete fear. She was incoherent, unable to form words, nearly howling in utter hysteria. I tried to calm her, but it was already too late. The flying Dogman turned and glared in our direction. She was scaring off whatever that creature had been stalking over on the other side of that metal fence. My girlfriend was ruining his dinner plans, more or less. I kept trying to get her to quiet down, which only succeeded in getting her to slap me around furiously as she shouted even louder. Soon, the Dogman was screeching back at her. It didn't sound canine to me. It almost sounded more like a monkey. Imagine something squealing in horror in reaction to your girlfriend squealing in horror. It was a nightmare duet. I could see how agitated the Dogman bat thing was getting, and so I decided it was time to go. I told my girlfriend what I had decided, and I put my arm around her to gently guide her back toward the car. She didn't take to me wanting her to survive this encounter very well. She had other plans, and so she erupted into even louder shouting and began pounding me with her handbag. At this point, I heard the bat dog take off from his tree branch so forcefully that the branch itself cracked in the process. It took to the air in our direction, and I grabbed my girl from behind and flipped her up over my shoulder. She was kicking and punching me, and she scored a few direct hits, if you know what I mean. But I was able to carry her to the car and save her life in this fashion. The Dogman was flying overhead, pinging me with sharp small objects flung at great speed. I don't know if he was getting me with pebbles or acorns or what, but they stung sharply when they would hit. I dropped my girlfriend off on the passenger side of the car, then did the TJ hooker across the hood and onto the driver's side. You could hear the small projectiles pinging off the vehicle as I climbed inside and popped the lock for my girlfriend. Throwing on my seatbelt, I put the car in gear and noticed that my girlfriend was still outside the car. Still, I don't know. Was she lecturing me about something? I'm not really sure who she thought she was talking to, but I couldn't hear her. I could hear the projectiles pinging off the metal and glass, costing me more money for repairs by the second, but I had no idea what my old lady was going on about this time. I leaned over and opened the door for her, and then she finally started coming inside, still talking a mile a minute. But she wasn't lecturing me. She was on the phone with her mother, telling her what a brute and a bore I had been. I caught one more glimpse of the flying Dogman once we got onto the highway toll road. It was flying in the opposite direction of us, and I have not seen him again since. Was that the Chicago Mothman? It did have giant bat wings, but its glowing eyes were not red, and it resembled a werewolf or a dogman more than it resembled a bird. So what exactly do you think I saw those 2 times? For lack of a better name, I still refer to it as the Bat-Winged Dogman. We want to thank our executive producer. Without her, we'd be naught but a loser. Of all the sweet people who bless with a yes, there are none nicer than our dear CS. Please join me in thanking CS for once again pulling our fanny out of the fire. We'll be thanking her again soon, after we caught up with some kind donations and new memberships that you nice people have been hitting us up with lately. I have to say, you guys have added a lot of enthusiasm around here in the past week or two, and a lot of it has centered on some of our central donors, most especially CS. If you'd like to help us out and get cool perks like CS, then check out this next message from our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.